I've been in 90 countries. I hitchhiked around the world for 2 years when I was a kid. And one of the things I love is travel. And the reason I love it is it puts you in a new environment. So when we were talking about Italy before the call started, if you go to Venice, now there's no roads and there's boats. Like, what is going on here? There's canals everywhere. There's people, you're walking. There's these beautiful ancient buildings. There's history. You're snapped out of your sleep, if you will, your slumber, and you're wide awake with wonder because you're in this completely different environment. I've chased that feeling my whole life, scuba diving, just putting myself in different places. And I pretty much thought I'd seen it all. I mean, like, I'm in my 50s and I go to Burning Man for the first time and I'm like, wow, like, it blew my mind.
Welcome to the Legendary Podcast, an invitation into intimate, soul-bearing conversations with the gods and goddesses of our Burning Man camp, the legendary playground of the gods. Here you'll meet the visionaries, wisdom keepers, heart-centered entrepreneurs, and edge walkers who make up this extraordinary soul family. Together, we'll journey through the turning points that shaped us, the failures, the victories, the breakdowns, and the breakthroughs, and what it truly means to rise and build something sacred from the ashes. If you've been searching for your people, if you've longed to find a community that inspires you to rise, you found your tribe. So join us now for another sacred journey. Welcome to the playground of the gods. Welcome to Legendary. Hello, legends, and welcome back to the Legendary Podcast. I have here with me today David Osborn, who is a dear friend, dear brother, and just an incredible human being, as we will very quickly reveal in today's episode. Well, hi, David. Welcome.
Hi, Celinne. So great to be with you.
I'm super, super excited to dive into your story. And, look, I'll just kick this off by saying I was joking with David right before this conversation. I was like, hey, you haven't sent me your media bio, sir. Like, I don't actually have a lot of context about what you do professionally other than small things here and there. But what I do know of David is my personal direct experience of him, which is this man is one of the most open-hearted, kind, generous people that I have met. Like, I have had such the privilege of getting to know him just through burning with him and spending some time in Austin in his homes. And it's just every single time that I've interacted with him, I leave with a big smile on my face, just feeling empowered and just having this really good, like, life is good. Everything's good feeling in my body. So that's my experience of David. And I could go on, but this isn't about that. It's about David's story. So, David, I'm going to throw the ball back to you. And I would love if you could share a little bit of context of who you are personally and professionally and what's lighting you up in life right now.
Yeah, beautiful. So good to see you, Celine. It's always a pleasure. So who am I? I am an interesting dude. I was a son of a soldier. My dad was a Green Beret, and we moved around the world a bunch until he retired when I was 14. So I moved 10 times before I was 14. And then
Wow.
I got to Austin, Texas, went to school here, was a poor student, got thrown out of a couple high schools, got a job after going through UT, selling door-to-door computers. I hated that job mainly because my female boss was pushing me to have sex with her. So I kind of, after 1 year, even though I was the top salesman, I quit that job, sold all my possessions, and went hitchhiking around the world. I hitchhiked around the world for 2 years. And some of the generosity you feel, Celine, is because so many people gave me generosity when I was couch surfing before they had internet and before they had cell phones, and getting rides from people and hitchhiking up through Africa and all through India and to all the way over to Australia. And then I came back to the United States and I got into business in residential real estate. And I built the US's largest franchised real estate company, number 6 real estate company in the US, but the largest franchised real estate company. We sell about 26,000 homes a year right now, about $10 billion worth of sales. And I built some master franchises. So that was my first career. My first real commitment as an entrepreneur was building franchises inside the Keller Williams system, and became the number 1 franchisor in that system. And then I started also an entrepreneurial mastermind on this journey. So many people poured into me that I felt a desire to pour back into others. And I also had 2 buddies, and those buddies had held me accountable at a very high level. We'd had transparency, authenticity, and accountability. So we built a tribe called GoBundance, which today has a nearly 1,000 members. And GoBundance is an entrepreneurial mastermind. You have to own a business. It has to be up and running to a certain level. And we get together, we teach, entrepreneurs how to be authentic, transparent, and be held accountable to their dreams.
Mm.
And that's been a blast. That business has been super fun. And then I also started a private equity firm in 2018, which invests in cash flowing real estate investments. And we what we do is we try to not be greedy, but be cash flow focused. So we help people invest money and get money from their money. So that was my business life, which was from pretty much 94 until, let's see, 2018. And then about 7 years ago, I began a journey more into the spiritual side of things. It took me a while to decompress myself from work. I still own those three businesses. They're all run by CEOs. But about 3 or 4 years ago, I started going deeper into transformation and kind of trying to figure out what makes me tick. And that's been the most exciting journey, Celine. If you'd have caught me 10 years ago, I'd have said, I have mastered the universe. There is nothing I can't do. I have my health. I have my wealth. I kick ass. I make money. I'm generous. I take care of people. And I have an amazing team and a beautiful wife and three wonderful kids. But then I started doing this journey of going inward, and I'm like, oh, no, no, no. I'm really fucked up. I got a lot to do inside of here. I got a lot of, when I started discovering vulnerability and started discovering what was behind, the machine that had made all that money, it's been very humbling and also really expansive and very exciting to sort of dig into the inner world and see what makes me tick and see if I can, move from my head back into my heart has kind of been the journey I've been on. And it's been very exciting. And that's probably a lifetime never ending journey. But right now I'm kind of deep into that process. And that's what lights me up. That, and then my kids and my daughter, who's a singer, and my son, who's a golfer, and my oldest daughter, who's an amazing therapist and has her first baby. So I'm a grandfather now. The children are amazing. And then, yeah, life's just amazing. There's so many beautiful things in it.
Oh my God, this is beautiful. So much rich context, and I can't wait to dive in. I definitely want to talk about your spiritual journey. But before we do, we're going to stick a pin on there because I want to rewind a little bit and learn more about the man and who you were before you arrived to that point where you were like, wait a minute, something has to shift. Because, it seems that from a young age, you experienced there was a lot of motivation. There was a lot of energy of, I want to do and I want to create. And I'm really curious about, David, if you were to look back at the version of you before you began your spiritual journey, what would you say was the thing that was most motivating you to the point where you went off to have an incredibly successful career with all of your companies? What was underneath that?
Yeah, it's a great question. I look back on it because I was actually not the typical kid you would think would be successful. I think I really didn't really have a sense of who I was because I moved so much. But one thing I knew was that money equaled freedom. So for me as a young man, I was like, I had a rich uncle, and this rich uncle, Uncle Ted, when we were in England, he let us stay in the gamekeeper's cottage. My dad was a soldier, right? So he didn't make a lot of money. My mom was a military housewife, later on a realtor. She made more money as a realtor, but that was way later in her career. So we didn't really have much money. We were the middle of the middle class. And my uncle, Uncle Ted, he was the guy that had the big parties, and everyone, would come over for Christmas, and we'd all sit in it, like 50 family members, and he'd sit at the head of the table, make a speech, carve a turkey. We were all happy to be in his house. We were happy to be being fed. And I remember he had a beautiful farm with a beautiful view, like a farmhouse, well, kind of like more like a mansion on a farm. Very old English. He was English. My mom's a Brit. And I just remember kind of equating like, yeah, it seems like if you're going to have a life, that seems like the life you would want to have. And then when I was in school at high school, and like I said, I got thrown out of a couple high schools, not for anything terrible. I was just kind of rebellious, and I didn't deal with authority very well, probably because my dad was a Green Beret and I was only afraid of him, but I wasn't afraid of anybody else. So even then in school, I didn't understand the reason for work. I didn't understand the reason for homework. But I got a job as a kid at school. And I went and did landscape gardening, and then that became construction. And then I started my own lawn mowing company. And that made sense to me. It made sense for me to work, to make money and get paid for the quality of the work I did. And I think that meant to me like, oh, I should do this well. When I was a grocery bagger, I tried to be the fastest bagger. When I when I did landscaping, I remember I worked really hard in the sun. And the second summer that I came back to work, one of the workers looked at me and he said, you haven't figured it out yet, because I was still working as hard as I could. And what I realized he was saying is, like, in this heat, you probably need to mail it in a little bit. But I didn't have that in me. I kind of had I'm going to get this job done as fast as I can. That's this job done. So then I realized I had to work for myself, kind of like, then I fell into real estate, the lawn mowing company, made 20 grand when I was 17, living at home. I thought I was rich. And that led eventually through the sales company, the hitchhiking around the world, into real estate. And then when I got into real estate, I became addicted to learning, because once I started selling and I learned that if I got better at scripts, or better at prospecting, or better at managing the leads, I made more money. So then I was like, oh, there is a correlation between the effort and the knowledge and the outcome, which I didn't feel a lot of the times in high school.
Mm.
So then I became addicted to learning, and I just I started putting time in it. As I was learning, I remember reading the cash flow quadrant, which was Kiyosaki, which kind of became a roadmap for me, which is like, okay, I could make my money by my time, or I could make my money by what I own as an investor, or I could make my money by businesses I create. And I started moving myself to the right side of the quadrant, from self-employed. I was almost never an employee, but from self-employed to business owner, which was the franchises, and then to investment. And that really made a lot of sense to me. So then I went up and, after selling as a realtor for 3 years, I went to open my first franchise with my mom, who was also a legendary realtor in Austin, and ended up building, 15 franchises or so. Bought her out in 99 after we had 6 or 7, and then partnered up with some other people and just began expanding. And then, like, it became a game. So really, from 1997 until 2018, I was in this game, and the game was, how hard can I work? But how not at first it was, how hard can I work? But then it became, how smart can I work? And then, how much leverage can I create? And what, because it's amazing. Business is unbelievable. There's so much you can learn and so much you can know. And the minute you get it right and apply it, you get outcome. It's like a dream, because you learn how to hire, you hire a better person, you get better results. It's all right there. So there's immediate feedback, which made sense to me and worked for me. And so then I became addicted to that game.
Beautiful. I love it. There's a couple things that you share that are really interesting because, well, number one of the things that I'm noticing is just your sheer love, respect, and appreciation for just the game of business. It's very contagious, and I am sure
Mhm.
bleeds into everything that you do and everything that you create, including GoBundance. So I
Mhm.
love hearing that, and that might begin to answer my question. But here's what I'd love to hear from you. There's a lot of entrepreneurs who share the belief that money equals freedom. There's
Right.
a lot of people who work hard, and there's also a lot of people who learn how to work smart. But not a lot of people are actually able to flip the switch like you did, to be able to go from, okay, I'm working really hard and I'm making money, but I'm still working, and the struggle upwards, to actually be able to, like, click and see it in a different way, where money comes in a much more leveraged way, in which much more ease, and where it all becomes a game. And so I'm curious, when you reflect back on your life and your story, and knowing that a lot of the ingredients that you put forward are very similar to the ingredients that many other entrepreneurs put forward, what do you feel was your secret sauce for being able to actually make it and play the game?
I think the difference, people think I'm being humble when I say this, but it's really not humbleness. It's truth. It's really like a lack of talent. Like, I didn't have the talent that equaled the level of my ambition. So I, or another way of saying it is, I was lazy but ambitious. So what I meant by that is, like, I was just trying to figure out, like, okay, how do I get to the outcome that I want? How do I get to the outcome I want? And I don't mind working really, really, really hard, as long as that work isn't a repetitive. If I don't see that in 10 years, I'm going to have to do the same thing. I'm like, I will work 6 months straight, 12 hours a day. If I can see that end of that 6 months, I've got something set up that will then pay me 250,000 per year for the rest of my life. Or back then that was, or 1 million a year for the rest of my life. And so I think the thing that having that lack of talent, like, meaning that I have good talent. I'm not disparaging myself, but some people have amazing talent and they can ride that to a very high number. But what they don't realize is, if you are the person creating that number, you always have to be the person creating the number. In other words, if you're the man, if you're the quarterback of the football team, you take you out of the football team might fall apart. for me, I was like, yeah, okay, I'm a decent quarterback, but I could probably hire a quarterback that's better than me. I'm a good running back, but I could probably hire a running back that's good. So going to a sports analogy, or really anything, I'm a good painter, but I could hire a painter that's better than me. And so really, I got obsessed with not doing the work myself. And I learned so much, because when you start paying attention and you're committed, knowledge just pours in from everywhere. But one of the things I learned was, I do it, we do it, they do it. That's the journey of the entrepreneur. And I'd look at people like Warren Buffett. I used to carry a picture with Warren Buffett, Steve Jobs, and Bill Gates on it, and also oh my gosh, who's that motivational speaker that's so amazing? Anyway, a very famous old school motivational
Tony
speaker
Robbins, or the one that talks
before Tony Robbins. Before Tony
Jim
Robbins,
something something?
he would say things like, you don't get four springs. You get one spring, one summer, one fall, and one winter. So you better hope when winter comes around, you've planted the seeds to reap the harvest in the fall so you can eat in the winter. He's
Wow,
an old,
and pretty
very,
impressive.
very smart old guy. I wish I could remember. He wrote How to Write a Magnificent Life. I'll remember it in a minute. But anyway, so all of these people that I'd look at, especially like Warren Buffett, he doesn't run any of his companies. Other people run them. And so then I was lucky enough to be exposed to some really good courses on hiring. Now, the other thing is, when you have six franchises, when I had six franchises, I could kind of run them all myself. I was just exhausted because I was going from place to place to place, like across Dallas. But when you have 15 franchises, you'll probably die. Jim Rohn, by the way, Jim Rohn is the guy. Do you know Jim Rohn? Jim Rohn. That was the one. Yeah, yeah. So, but if you have 15, you can't do it. You'll die. Like six almost gave me a mental breakdown. So, I mean, I kind of had a identity. I had a lot of health problems at around 31 because of how hard I was working. So I had six, but I noticed one of them was doing pretty well, and the others weren't. But the one that I had doing well happened to have my best manager, and I was like, oh, like I was like, oh, that manager's doing good. Like, what if I got another good manager, instead of like trying to build the business and fill it in and having a mediocre manager? What if I got a world class manager? And that's where I began to see the value of other talented people. There's people that are more talented than you that could do any job you're thinking of better than you can. And your job is to find them and bring them into your organization. So that became my new mantra, is like, number one job is to find talent. And then pretty soon I found that every time I'd find a talented person and put him in a position with a clear business plan or a framework or an objective, I could step back and go build something else, and then just keep my finger on the pulse of that business and make sure the guy, whoever the person was, remained talented, kept doing the job, didn't have a life crisis or something, and make sure I wasn't putting, because the other mistake we'll make is we'll be hopeful they're talented, and then we put them as if they are talent. You got to wait to really find out. It takes about 6 months to 9 months to really determine if they can do all the aspects of the job. But keeping an eye on the ball, being involved enough, but then slowly releasing control as they did a better and better job. And then if they were really good, give them opportunities leading other franchises. So then I began to play this game, instead of just pure work ethic. It was literally, they do it. Like, who are the they in my life? Realizing that if I hire someone talented, they'll only work for me in for two reasons. One is if I have an economic vision that's bigger than theirs. So I spent a lot of effort building a huge vision. And then two is, if within my economic vision, they have opportunity that gets them to where they want to go. So I was kind of like, yeah, how do I hire Tom Brady, Emmett Smith? I want all the best, Jerry Rice. Like, I want all the best of every position in my organization, and then I want a pathway for them to hit all of their economic goals. So now my vision for my life was to hire talent, to create a big freaking vision that everyone could get attracted to. Because no one will, if your goal is to make 100 million and my goal is to make 10 million, you won't work for me. But if my goal is to be a billionaire and you're comfortable at 50 million, you'll work for me.
Mhm.
And then the third thing was to create enough opportunity for these badass humans that I could keep expanding my empire and help them win. So it becomes like a covenant relationship where they and I are, we're linked. And my goal is to help them win while they're making me win.
Mhm. Wow, thank you so much. One of the things I really loved about what you shared was that your ambition was larger than your talent. And it's such like a sober and truthful thing to say, and even to admit about a past version of yourself, and realizing that when there's a gap, if we can actually have the courage to admit the gap, see the gap for what it is without needing it to mean something about ourselves, then it gives us an opportunity to bridge that gap. And it sounds like that's what you did in your journey. And as a result of you bridging that gap, you learned so much wisdom in lessons that you were then able to pass out in the business context. So that's incredible. I loved hearing about your passion for business. And I want to slightly pivot now and bring it back to your story forward to the point right before you had this realization as you shared that, there's something deeper going on and there's deeper healing. There's a path that I need to pursue that isn't just everything that's been humming along. And something that you share that really stood out to me is you were saying along the lines of, if you had asked me 10 years ago, I'm like, I'm on top of the world. Everything's fine. Everything's good. And you were riding that wave until the point where you weren't anymore, and there was a pattern interrupt. There was something that needed to shift in order for you to realize, huh, maybe I need to look at this again. I would be really curious, David, if we could double click on that and illuminate what that is. And I ask not just out of interest for your story, but because I have been behind the scenes of so many entrepreneurs who are on that wave, and either they're still unconscious, they're still not realizing that something's off and that there's a part of their journey that is still hasn't been accessed, or they're getting to that point where they're like, is something off? Is it? And they're not quite clear on what it is. And it might even be some people who are listening to this episode right now. And so, yeah, I'd love to hear about your story in the hopes that this can illuminate some things for those who might be going through that journey or
Yeah.
about to be going on that journey.
Well, I think it's a combination of things that began to like put a light on other aspects of my personality that I hadn't really looked at, or my spirit, if you will, my growth. One was the death of my father. So when he died, you think in life that if this is the beginning and this is the end, you think it's like moving at the same time. But in reality, the end is here and you're moving towards that end. And one day you'll end, right? But when you're young, you feel like there is no end. You just think it's rolling along. I'm going to last forever. And so I think when my dad got cancer and he was in really good shape and he was a bear of a dude. And when he died in 3 years with a pretty tough little death, I took some time off to go nurse him and help mom with him. And then he died. And that was step one. And then I kind of woke up a little bit and then fell back to sleep and got back into ambition because that was, 16 years ago, 15 years ago. But it was a little bit of a light. Like I was like, okay, life ends. This bear of a man dies at 77 that worked out every day, was in great physical shape, drank too much and did some other bad habits, but the cancer took him down. Didn't matter how healthy he was. He just got to die slower or longer, right? So that was the first aha. So that time I'm probably, I don't know, I'm 40 maybe. So a little bit of a light goes on. And then I had a baby, which was beautiful. And then we had a lot of trouble having a second baby. We had like I already had one baby from high school, by the way, just to clarify, but with my wife now, we had Bella, and then we had a really hard time having a second baby. We had like miscarriages and stillbirths. And then finally we had a miracle baby when my wife's 49. We thought we were done. We thought we couldn't have babies. We'd done all the in vitro and all the chemicals and all that crap, and none of it worked. And so we stopped and we were just trying to decide we're going to adopt or we're going to try a surrogate, or what were we going to do? We didn't know. And Tracy did a whole cleansing diet. She got pregnant again. So we called Luke our miracle baby. And then he came in as a risky pregnancy and we got through it. He was born a little premature. And I think seeing all that and like seeing my baby come into the world, well, now I'm 49 and I'm like, it felt so tender and it felt so fragile. And I realized that with my oldest daughter, who's 37, I'd barely been present. Like I thought a good father provided, and took good vacations and made sure they had a car and all the things, right? And then with my daughter, who was 15, I'd been a little bit more present. We'd done a lot more vacations, but I still thought my primary job was to kind of provide and put meat on the table or whatever, food on the table. But I began to realize not whether that's true or not, because I think it's a good argument, but I realized what I was missing, like with those moments, because now my old, one daughter's growing, my new son comes, and he's so fragile, and I began to think, what can I do to set this up to spend more time with him and learning that relationship? And so I began to look at what the wiring was that made me want to be a billionaire, because originally I wanted to be a billionaire. And I began to realize that getting to a billion was definitely achievable, but it was the same behavior over and over. It's like I was in Groundhog Day. I'd mastered it to enough of a level where I could repeat forever. And if you want to play Monopoly for the rest of your life, God bless you, play Monopoly for the rest of your life. But for me, I was like, oh, there's a little bit more. How can I be a better father? And then when you try to be a better father and you go inward, then you start seeing a lot of things like who the hell makes that much money anyway? You don't make, I don't think most people make the amount of money I've made unless they've got some kind of trauma or something they had to deal with. So then I started unpacking that, and I realized how in my head I was and kind of how cut off from my heart. And that's probably been the journey of the last 4 to 7 years, is like, yes, this was amazing. And yes, I thought I was the master of the universe because I'd really learned to master my emotions, master my willpower, make myself do difficult things, suffer happily, and just keep working and grinding and hold a vision and deal with stress and deal with conflict and deal with lawsuits and deal with all the stuff and stand in it without blinking, which I learned, which is admirable. I'd be great in a war. But I realized as I kind of went back towards being a better father and I had to go into the heart, that I had like a lot of armor between my head and my heart. And that's been the journey I've been on now, is like slowly breaking that down. I'm still explaining it to you from a very heady place, but dropping into it, it's a beautiful journey, but it's definitely not easy. But it takes the same kind of courage and focus and intensity that I used to build my businesses. So that's the good part about it. But it's mushy and soft and kind of scary and doesn't have the clarity of goals and focus that I was used to 10 years
I was
ago.
about to say non-linear.
Yes, it's very
Flat
nonlinear.
axis through the head.
Yeah. It's not like you don't ever actually really achieve it. It's actually an ongoing
No.
process.
I love that. David, thank you so much for sharing this beautiful story. It's just wonderful to just see the tapestry of you come together. And I'd love to dive into this, what you share, this journey between the head and the heart, and how, even especially at the beginning, I mean, look, it's a hard one. It's a difficult one. Even in my work with people, it's one that I'm constantly facilitating. And I'm super curious with you and your story. How was that journey for you? And what were the biggest challenges that you had to overcome? Because while, yes, as you shared, there's a lot of parallels in terms of ambition and drive to get it done, just like you did with business. But as you just alluded to, it is not. It is the same, but it's also not the same. And so I'd love if you can, yeah, speak into that and your own adversity around it. That wasn't what you were prepared or expect. It wasn't something that you were pre-prepared for with your entrepreneurship.
Yeah. I mean, it's hard to explain, Celine, especially in a environment like this, but what I can tell you is the benefit that has come from it is I just feel like I'm a better father for my daughters.
Mhm.
I think I'm a better human at really feeling what other humans are going through. I used to not mind fixing people's problems, but my general sense was, I don't mind fixing it for you because I'm fucking talented and I'll fix it for you. But I couldn't really feel them. I couldn't feel the what they were going through, and now I'm able to feel much more. And the journey has been, medicines. I've done medicines, and like I did some ketamine, and it was amazing. I was floating in a box of stars, and I was like a little crystal of God, but I was the linchpin of the universe. And if you pulled me out, the whole structure was going to fall apart. And I came out and I had a therapist there. I'm like, oh my God, I just had this incredible vision. Like, I am like a tiny shard of God and I'm the linchpin of the universe. And if you pull me out, the whole thing is going to fall apart. And I thought it was amazing until she said to me, what age did you take that on? Like, what age did you decide that? And I just burst into tears. And I was still high on ketamine, but I hadn't cried. I barely ever cried for 20 years. And I was bawling my eyes out. And I was like, gosh, I think I took that on at about 5 years old. My dad was very intense and very aggressive. And there was a lot of heat in my home, a lot of arguments. My folks stayed together for 50 years, but there was a lot of intensity. And I think at some point, as the youngest boy in that family and the youngest child, I was watching all the chaos. And I was just like, wow, somebody needs to take responsibility for all this shit going on in this house. So I guess it'll be me. I'll just try to hold it together and love people the right way and take care of people the right way. And so that was like revealing. And I, cried my eyes out for the first time in I hadn't cried since my dad had died, which was, because this was probably like 5 years ago. So I hadn't cried in 10 years. Literally, no tears had come out of my eyes. It's still very hard for me to cry.
Mm-hmm.
But at that moment, and then I just did some more of those journeys. I started hiring some therapists, a very somatic therapist. My wife and I started getting into it, and I realized, my wife used to say, being married to you is like being in the back seat of your car. And I'd say, holy shit, that sounds terrible. Why do you put up with that? And she goes, every now and then you put me in the front seat, and it's so nice. And what I realized is like, I really had never let anyone in. So I'd kind of like, even my kids, like I took care of everybody, but I didn't really let anyone in. Like the operating system was, it was just running. It was me running a program. And yeah, it's been hard to break all that down and really, because behind it is just mush. It's just like you said, it's just emotion. But it really feels good too. Like after crying like that, you just feel like you can breathe just a little deeper.
Mm-hmm.
After, my wife and I, it's been tough, in a way, because I'm not the same man she married, and I'm sure she's not the same woman I married, but we're dealing with stuff. We're looking at stuff. We're trying to have intimacy, and to have intimacy, I have to show up to be seen. And a lot of the times I didn't really let anyone see me because I was just Superman. I even remember saying to my wife one time, I love, I'm going through this journey. I'm like, I'd love for you to just tell me I've done a good job. She goes, you need someone to tell you you've done a good job? You're like Superman. What are you talking about? You never have seemed like you needed that at all. And you just begin to realize like all the armoring up you've done and all of that process. Yeah. And it's not fun tearing down those walls, but it's rewarding at the same time. Like I've got to go through quite a bit of pain and reconstruction of my emotions. But on the other side of it, I'm feeling more joy and more love, if that
Mm-hmm.
makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. Thank you so much for sharing. And what I love and feel inspired by when it comes to your story is that as you're sharing and you're opening up about your journey and what you've been through and what that looks like for you and these challenges through your story, through the looking glass of your story, I see the stories of so many other men
Mm.
who are at different levels and stages of their own journey into stepping into their kingship, and beyond that opening their heart and being leaders, not from that like I'm going to make more money and I'm going to do places and I'm going to provide and that's what all I'm good for, but rather like, and I'm here and I have emotions and I have a huge heart and I have feelings and I'm here to love, right? And just like that integration also of the feminine aspect back into the masculine. And I
Mm.
hear the stories of men who felt like all they were good for was providing, and that's all they could do, and that was what their value was. And I see the story of men who thought that they needed to stay on this hamster wheel and just keep going, keep going, keep going, and keep succeeding and keep making more money in order to have the life that they desired, only to find out, perhaps for some like really late in the game, that that's not the way that they wanted to live. I see the stories of so many men who grew up with absent fathers and, father figures in their lives who couldn't be there for them. And so they had to be the ones who stepped up at really early ages and then were never able to untangle themselves from those patterns. And so, I really commend you in the sense that you waking up, number one, but number two, having the courage to step into this work as nonlinear and not like there's a goal and there's a milestone. And as long as you do X, Y, and Z, you're going to hit this thing by then. And just completely just stepping into the mystery and having the courage to navigate it and to take that journey into your heart. I really applaud you for that. And I'm sure anyone that's listening, either those who have had men in their lives, the women who have had men in their lives, who are either struggling through that or breaking through that or breaking generational patterns as you are, or the men who are listening and maybe, even look up to you as they're listening to you and they're like, oh, wait, I can go to my heart and it's still going to be okay and I'm going to be fine. It really becomes a beacon of hope. And so,
Yeah.
I'd love to pull the thread on that just a little bit more. And, you've been doing so much reflection in the last 10 years and you've been going really deep in your spiritual path. And I'm wondering, if you look back at the whole story of your life, if you've ever, and if not, just whatever comes through intuitively, but if there's a thread when it comes to the deeper why of why you're here and what your life is here to be a beacon of, do you have a sense of what that, we can call it energy pattern that runs through your life is? that you're here to embody and perhaps
I think,
teach?
yeah, it's got to be love. It's got to be that we're here to love. We're here to love
Mhm.
one another. We're here to love our children. We're here to love our partners. We're here to learn how to love at the highest and best way possible. And I would include in that love ourselves,
Mhm.
which may be the hardest part for many of us. You may think you love yourself, but actually, if you look at your actions, you might find, or I would certainly say, if I look at how I treated myself for the 20 years I was coming up, working, 12 hours a day, drinking to relax and let off steam and just pushing both ends of the needle. Yeah, I would say that you could see some evidence there that I maybe wasn't loving myself the best way I could. So I think love and then becoming, I think we're like a unique tree or a unique fingerprint. We have a unique identity, and expressing and becoming the best version of yourself so that you
Mhm.
can love others better and more. I'd say that to me seems like the theme of life. I think, yeah, it's like you honor God by expressing yourself with the most uniqueness and by loving others as much as you can and loving whatever God is to you, whatever life is to you as much as you can. So that's
Yeah.
the theme for sure.
Mhm. Beautiful, beautiful. And I love to take that even further. So, a question that keeps pulsing through me is as you're sharing with me about your unraveling and evolution and opening as a man, a father, a husband, a friend, community leader, you are now the father of a precious little boy. And although, all of your children are precious, I believe that there's something that's special that happens when a man who's especially like has gone through the journey of his own awakening comes into his power in a deeper way, and he gets to look through the eyes of a young little man, right? It must have completely, I mean, I even get truth bumps as I'm sharing this, like, it must be a completely different experience for you to be a father who's raising a son, who's raising someone who will one day become a man. And I
Mm.
really love, yeah, how does, even when I'm sharing that, like, how does that land for you? And what has been your perspective when it comes to raising a son and whether you've seen yourself and that the little boy inside of you in that process?
I mean, I think I love being a father. And I would say that both my wife and I are getting better at parenting all the time. We can already see a difference in how we parent with Luke than how we parented with Bella. And I can see a massive difference between how I parented my oldest daughter, Kevin, and my two kids that I have with Tracy. And I think the experiment that I'm running on myself by going inward and not really trying to feel better, but to try to get better at feeling,
Mm.
in a way gives my son permission to feel his feelings and be more authentic in his truth. And I think that's the biggest gift of all is
Yeah.
the old me when he falls, and it's learning to have compassion and really just not trying to beat his feelings out of him, but try to teach him how to live his life with feelings and and manage them and keep them alive. And yeah, I just think that's probably the best journey of all. Like, even when I see a reflection in my daughter who's 15 and dealing with all the things, it's hard to be a 15-year-old in today's world. It's probably always hard to be 15, but and when I feel her, like, just for a minute, look me in the eyes and realize that I'm her ally, like, not just this guy that tries to boss her around, not just this guy that tells her to clean her room, but actually sees me. And I can see in her eyes that she is actually in that one moment grateful and sees that I love her because I've been able to express it. Not, so, when you're telling them to clean your room, you're actually still telling them you love them. You're saying, I'm worried about you. I need you to clean your room so I don't feel stressed that you're not going to be able to survive in life. But they don't hear that. They just hear the nagging. But if you can, like, change it and just show up sometimes and just be fully present to them and love them as them, and then they see that and they recognize it and they reflect it back to you, it's such a gift. And living it through Luke, I mean, I'm just so grateful I don't think people should have kids till they're like 45 or 50. It takes so long to figure all this shit out. But yeah, it's very rewarding, that journey. And I'm very grateful for the work I'm doing and how it shows up for my son. I think he's a very lucky boy. And he's going to have a lucky life because of the work I'm doing, because of the work my wife's doing. And just because he came in so late, you know.
Mhm. Beautiful. I love it. Well, Now that we're in the land of gush and heart and love and personal development and spirituality and being better versions of ourselves, I would love to ask you about Legendary. You have been in the camp more than once. Like, you are such an active community member, so proactive, so present in it. And I'd love to hear about why do you go to Burning Man? Specifically, why Legendary? What do you see that has you coming back again and again?
Yeah, I'd been invited to Burning Man a bunch and I'd never gone. I was so ambitious, I didn't really feel like playing. And then I finally went 3 years ago because of a guy called Preston Smiles, who I finally felt like, yeah, I trust that guy. I'll go with that guy. And he invited me to go, and my wife and I went, and we just loved it. We were shocked. I mean, it's like it's. I've been in 90 countries. I hitchhiked around the world for 2 years when I was a kid, and one of the things I love is travel. But and the reason I love it is it puts you in a new environment. So when we were talking about Italy before the call started, if you go to Venice or Siena, either one, but let's take Venice. Now there's no roads and there's boats. Like, what is going on here? There's canals everywhere. There's people, you're walking. There's these beautiful ancient buildings. There's history. You're snapped out of your sleep, if you will, your slumber, and you're wide awake with wonder because you're in this completely different environment. So I've chased that feeling my whole life, scuba diving, just putting myself in different places. And I pretty much thought I'd seen it all. I mean, like, I'm in my 50s and I go to Burning Man for the first time and I'm like, wow, like, it blew my mind. It blew my mind because it's it's a society built for 7 days with love, with no money, with no cell phone usage, and with no transactions, just to contribute to one another, just to like make offerings to one another. And it's astounding. Like, it's astonishing. It blew my mind. That's on the beautiful side. On the hard side, it's the desert. It's dry, it's dusty, it's dangerous, it's hot as F in the day and it's cold as F at night. And you need like a place, like you need a home, you need a community, which brings me to Legendary, because I was in Legendary the last 2 years and this will be my third. And the camp I was in before that was really, really nice, but it was nothing like Legendary, because what Legendary does is it provides an incredible community and a container where you have a delicious meal every day. And really, you don't need to eat that much on the playa, but you do need to nourish yourself and you need to have a place where you can be nourished. And Legendary provides such an amazing meal once a day, cooked by the amazing Pato, and gosh, I can't remember the other guy's name right now, but the food is delicious. Like, it's out of this world. And then you need a community leader. And that's what Gerald and Maya Rose do such a great job with their co-facilitators and their co-leaders of creating a container where we really are a community. It's a miraculous place, but you want to experience it with other people, and you want to experience it with people you can relate to, and to relate to people, you have to get to know them. You know, I don't bring a lot of my work people to Burning Man. I wouldn't want them to lose their ambition like I have. I want them to keep working to make me money, so they've all got to stay in the game. But here at Legendary, I just met so many people I can relate to, so many people that are my community. And then the teaching and the training is so much fun, because when you're during the day, it's really hot. So yes, you can go out and explore, and I've done plenty of that, but it's also nice just to sit in a tent and learn about breath work, or learn about, how to heal. Like Clip Rogers teaches amazing concepts on healing, or learn how to, see the future, whatever it is. Like, you taught an amazing class that was very meaningful for me last year, when I remember Jude and I did something you taught us, and we were both like blown away. We were like, holy crap, that was amazing. So it's so nice to have that as well, because you don't necessarily want to go out all day long in the heat. You either want to nap or take some classes. And then, yeah, Gerald and Maya Rose do an incredible job. The community's beautiful. The community continues all year long. There are burners. There are Legendary people here in Austin. You've come and stayed with me. There's just such a beautiful interaction. So I love Burning Man. It's blown my mind in a way that, like, traveling the world it like blew my mind to experience something like that in the 50s. Couldn't even imagine something like that existed. And then having a home on the playa is super important. And Legendary provides that better than any other camp that I've heard of. That doesn't mean there aren't some out there that are just as amazing, but I've heard of a lot of other people's experiences, and they're more like orphans than bringing a home with them to the playa. And I think that's what Legendary does, and Gerald and Maya Rose do.
And beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing everything you're saying. I'm like, yes, 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 yes. Same experience. And I'm curious, I mean, you've traveled, you've the whole world, right? 90 plus countries. I'm not up there yet, but I've also traveled a lot. And it's really funny you say that because I had a similar resistance when I first came to Burning Man. I'm like, oh, I got to get on a plane and to do another thing, to do another thing that I've already done. And it's kind of the same of the other things I've already seen. But it was like, whoa, this is its own unique fractal of the universe. There's nothing else like it. So now that you've had the integrated experience of all of your travels and Burning Man, what would you say are some key lessons and insights that you take with you from your travels and from Burning Man that now get applied in like all of life and business?
I mean, life is about wonder. Like if the mission of life is to learn to love, and the mission of your life is to become the most unique version of you and to create with this uniqueness whatever is most true to you, then the way to do that is enthusiasm and wonder. And to keep enthusiasm and wonder alive, like all children are born with enthusiasm and wonder. And so keeping that fire burning has also been a part of my life. And I've done that through vision and through creating things, but I've also done it through travel and meeting amazing people and experiencing wonders. And I think, the way it all ties together for me is it's a place of awe and wonder
Mm.
that so many people would put so much effort into creating a place that only exists for 7 days and then they tear it down and it disappears for no monetary gain, but just for the experience. That is awesome.
Mm.
That is wonder.
Mm. Even as you are describing it, it brings back to me what was running through me as you were saying that is, wow, another invitation to come into deeper appreciation of what we humans can do when we are in our hearts and we are operating from that beautiful space, what we're actually able to create from that place, which is, I think, legendary is a microcosm of that. So, as we begin to wrap up today's conversation, I'd love to ask you a question and just whatever comes through immediately intuitively for you. What
Okay.
what does legendary mean to you?
Fun community.
Tell us more. What is that? Fun and community and David
I mean,
side.
it's just a great group of people. They're
Yeah.
juicy, they're fun, they're interesting. It's I like to hug all the people. They're up to interesting things. They're just great. I mean,
Mhm.
it's playful.
Mhm.
It's like you having a school of kids that you love to hang out with. It's like going to a school you love.
Yeah, I like that. Okay, that one, yeah, yes, that one really that activated my childhood memories. Beautiful. Thank you so much, David. And there's
Yes.
one last question that I want to ask you before I let you go. And that is actually more than a question, it's an invitation, right? So we've just taken everyone that's listening on a journey through your life and even through the lens of your life of deeper universal truths around business and spirituality and manhood and fun and excitement, community, love. If there's any words of wisdom that you want to leave whoever's listening and has followed us this far with, it is what would it be? What would you share?
I mean, I think it's just trust yourself, man. Have faith in yourself. Like I think the one thing that I like about me
Tell
is that
us what you like about you.
I didn't quit on me. I had plenty of reasons to quit on me. You know what I mean? Like I had a lot of reasons to quit. Like I see people quit. They start mailing it in. They start doing a little less. They start
Mhm.
cutting a corner here, cutting a corner there, just settling for a little bit less than awesome. And we all do it. I'm not criticizing people, but I just kept believing in myself of why not me? And that's all it really takes. And that doesn't mean like I don't think it means you can't quit on Friday. Just get back to work on Monday. You can take time off. You can be like, fuck that. I'm not doing that anymore. That's too tiring. And then go take 2 days to rest. And then you wake back up on Monday and like, you know what? That was just my Friday feels. Now I'm back at it. I'm going to get back up and go after it. And I think, if you never quit on yourself and you maintain enthusiasm and wonder and you keep kind of purposeful and learning and growing, I think that makes for a magnificent life. And that was it. It's that. It's just don't quit on you. Don't quit on
Mhm.
you. And there are very happy, successful people, so why not you? I used to say, why not me? Because I would have these anxieties. I'd be like, who the hell am I to go to Dallas and build the number one real estate company like I did? But who? I remember driving into Dallas because I was coming up from Austin and looking at the big city and kind of being intimidated. I'm like 29 years old. I'm like, who the hell am I to do this. Like, what makes me think I can do that? And then the only way I could override that was by saying to myself, like, well, why not you? Because somebody's going to do that. Somebody's going to show up. Somebody's going to build the number one real estate company in Dallas. At that time, it was really just to be successful was why not me? So I would tell people, like, don't quit on yourself. Believe in yourself. And when you're down, find enthusiastic things that are filled with wonder that recharge you and refill your energy. And then just be purposeful towards a vision or an outcome that you hold. And if you do that, you may overestimate what you can do in a year, but in 10 years or 5 years, and given time with that kind of an attitude, you can't really fail.
Mm.
So that's my advice to
I love
people.
it. In other words, come home to Legendary, take the week off, and then go freaking slay the world.
Exactly. Amen. I mean, Elon Musk is doing it, so it must work for him. Jeff Bezos is there. There's a lot of amazing humans there. So yes, hell yes.
I love it. I love
Come
it.
to Legendary and play.
Let's play. Thank you so much,
Yes.
David, for just sharing more of you. And that was so insightful. I'm glad I got to know you a little bit better as well. And I'm so excited for everyone who has listened and has been able to receive all these juicy wisdom nuggets from you. Thank you so much for
It's my pleasure, Celinne. Thanks for doing this. Okay, see you soon.
I'll see you at the burn.
See you at the playa.
Thank you for walking with us through the fires of remembrance. If today's story stirred something in your soul, share it with a fellow god or goddess. Subscribe to Legendary for more transmissions from our tribe, and may you continue weaving your legend in love and joy. Until next time, stay sovereign, stay sacred, and make it legendary.